Alright, for my final video, I am in my new apartment. Moved in as soon as we got back. It's been a very long and busy week doing this and trying to keep up with schoolwork. But for the final video, start off question number one. Why is it important that people see famous works of art? Why is it important that you/I see important famous works of art? So to me, like, art is a representation of a person, depending on what type of art they make, as well as it showcases a lot of the history. And so there's so many different art styles, and a lot of those art styles had influences of the times. Like the Dark Ages didn't use a lot of bright colors. They were very dark paintings. And so it kind of gives you a clue into like what might have been happening at that time. Again, the Dark Ages, it was like all religious paintings. It was a lot of Madonna and Child, like so much of that, so many Bible stories, and that's because the Catholicism had taken over, a lot of Europe, right? Roman Empire fallen, and then the Catholic Church rose to power, and they were really big on purity. So even though the Greeks and the Romans saw a beauty in the human body, they saw, the reproductive organs as something that was vulgar and that needed to be covered. So a lot of artworks you could see that were like the penis was cut off, or they had a fig leaf attached to them, or whatever. Those are altered pieces of work that were stolen and by them. So like that shows how this artwork had changed through history, how the view of the human body changed through history, which is why I think artwork is important for people to see. Personally, what I gain from looking at pieces of artwork is kind of like a change of mindset, in that when I look at an artwork, it's very easy to be like, that's a painting, and move on. But if I actually take the time to look into the painting, a lot of times there's like an interesting story behind the painting, and I feel like that mindset of like, if you dig a little deeper than just the surface level, and appreciate like every layer that goes behind it, then it just becomes so much more. So art is just like a beauty that is what is it? A learned palette, I guess, an acquired palette. Considering all the people, cost, resources to preserve the art, what does that say about it? Whatever, question two. So the more money and the more people, the more effort you're putting into preserving art, that shows is a sign of nonverbal communication. The more it's valued, the more it's wanting to preserve. They care that it stays as original as possible to keep the original intent and emotions behind the painting, right? That whole thing with like Michelangelo and the change of paint in the Sistine Chapel is like, that could be like a huge historic thing, and there's debates about it, and like there wouldn't be debates about it if it didn't matter, but it does matter. And so like without these efforts, we'd be left with recreations or pictures, and like I said, like that just doesn't hold the same weight as like the original. The US particularly doesn't have a lot of artwork that's old enough to need to be preserved the way that Italy and Austria had. Austria had a lot of paintings that go through restoration of the paint and the like I can't think of what it's called, the like layer that they put over the paint to preserve that, like that dries and that chips away over time. So they have to fix that. And then in Italy had a lot of ruins and stuff, and those ruins, they had supports added to them so that they would stay up longer, like the Colosseum had a lot of supports added so that it could stay as like original as possible. And the US just doesn't really have that. But like of what we do have, we tend to build over for something new and more modern. Like the Riverwalk, that is a beautiful natural river, part of which starts in San Marcos. And if you look at the San Marcos River and then you look at the Riverwalk, you're like, that's not the same water. Because like that's just what we've done to kind of like its natural beauty. So the US just doesn't really care, but we also don't really have much, I think, to care about the same way that Europe does. For the third question, people risking their lives, specifically during World War II, to witness some of the art. Just like the previous question, the more effort you put into art, the more it shows like how important it is, whether that be to go witness it or to go steal it, as that was very popular. Putting the effort into doing that shows how important that piece of work is. Like if your artwork got stolen during World War II by one of the leaders because they wanted it in their showroom, like that is a huge accomplishment. And so it can be a huge accomplishment to, if your art piece is like worshipped and like this is like a really nice thing to have, it's really special, it's like it's famous and I want it. Or if it's like a rebellious piece of work and it gets stolen to keep people from like seeing it, that also shows how impactful like you can be. So yeah, it's all about, it's just another layer of more effort you put into it, the more that artwork is valued. Some moments of wonder for me during this trip was mainly in Italy. When we would look at the ruins, I loved seeing the ruins. Going to the Colosseum was probably one of my favorite places, as well as going to Ostia Antica. It's just so amazing to see like how much is left behind in those two places, some of the most well-preserved ruins, and almost be able to put yourselves in the shoes of those that lived at that time. And so like as I was walking around, I was thinking of like picturing everyone else, like this place hustling and bustling back in the day, what daily life looked like. And it's almost like traveling through a portal, and I wish I could know what it's truly like, and that we could know what it's truly like, because we're only going off of what we know and what was left behind. So we have a good assumption, but like we will never truly know what happened and what it was like to live in 200 BC. And I thought it was fascinating to learn and see like the mosaics and all that stuff. For the last question, how would this experience affect my future self? The main thing, future me, as I'm gonna go back. I know I'm gonna go back. I want to go back to Italy. Like I said, the ruins, I love the ruins, so I would love to go explore more of Italy and see more of the history that's left behind. Artwork is less my thing, but I want to travel more of Europe and see more of the history that it offers, and just continue to be amazed. I also feel like this trip gave me a new appreciation for like traditional art, like the oil on canvas, and like the carving of statues, where it's like, that's cool, okay, because we were forced to like look more past what was just what we were looking at, and learn the stories to be able to reiterate into the videos, that I was like, oh, this piece of artwork is not just flowers on a pond, he was going through this and he took it at this place, which was like he was whatever, right? There's much more detail to it when you actually explore. So I feel like I would find myself in the future going to more museums, willingly, than I do now, which is usually just for school. that I would probably enjoy going to see traditional art more than I have before this trip.